Welcome to the Authentic Man podcast. I am your host, David Chambers. This is a podcast for men who want more and less from life. More deep connection, more emotional intelligence, more self-awareness, and more great sex. And less heartache, less conflict, less overthinking, and less stress. Creating dating lives, sex lives, and relationships that are incredible and authentic. My deepest goal is that you, the listener, can take away what you hear in this podcast and apply it to your life so that you can experience greater happiness, transformational growth, deeper relationships, and profound sexual intimacy. I believe that as men, we are capable of so much more depth than we are shown or led to believe. So join me as we get deep into this. Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers. I'm a dating, relationship, and intimacy coach for men. And I guide men to deeper connection with themselves, their partners, and whoever they meet in their lives, be that work or their family or whatever it may be. If you're just really connecting to themselves, their own self-awareness and understanding, and deepening their self-awareness and understanding as well. And in today's episode, I'm joined by a wonderful guest, Jenna Holloway. She's a hypnotist and a coach, and she does wonderful work with helping other people understand the subconscious mind. And this is the kind of topic of the episode, is really talking about how our minds operate and how we can put them into a place of being more functional, more optimum, more for what we want to do. And we talk a lot about how the subconscious mind works and how we, take in messages from the outside, the importance of sleep, how we've really normalized stress and the effect that stress has on our ways of thinking. We talk about how we can beat procrastination, ways to really deal with procrastination, because I know procrastination is a big problem for a lot of guys that I speak to and I work with. I also know that overthinking is a big problem, so we go into some detail about how we can, better deal with our overthinking and, look at why we overthink as well, more than anything, like understanding some of the brain mechanics of why we overthink and why in this modern age we're so prone to overthinking in comparison to what we would before. And there's a lot of conversation as well about, why our brain is really just a caveman brain. We haven't really evolved that far, but let Jenna get into that in more detail there. And what have I got coming up in terms of workshops and stuff? I've got my workshop, Mindful Masturbation, which is on the 20th of March. You can find that in the show notes. It's a wonderful workshop where I really talk about how we can use self-pleasure as men to really connect deeply with our sexual selves, of our feelings, be more present to our body, our own pleasure, what we enjoy, what we don't enjoy, through the exploration of ourselves. A few people have been, more than a few people into the workshop last time, and it's one that, I very commonly get asked for this one, to run this one again, so I'm doing so. So that's something that I've got coming up. Another new thing I've got coming up is a group program. It's going to be an 8-week men's group program. It's going to start in June. It's going to be the Wednesdays, so it's going to be 8 Wednesdays in a row from June into July. So it's 5 Wednesdays in June and the first 3 of July. And really, I'm going to be going through a lot of the things you hear me talk about on the podcast, but just in a group setting, going a bit deeper, obviously, than I can on the podcast, giving you exercises, embodiment work to really feel the things we're talking about, and also exercises and challenges to take on outside into your real life, outside of the program. So, if you're interested in that, please just drop me an email or send me a message on Instagram. You can get me on @theauthenticman_ on Instagram, or hello@theauthenticman.net on via email. So yeah, just get in contact with me and we can have a conversation about how that program works and whether it's good for you. But I'm really looking forward to it. I really delve into things like masculinity, how our masculine expression in the world really dictates how much joy and pleasure and fun and purpose we create. I'm talking a lot about leadership, and also a lot about in there about emotions and emotion regulation and bringing more presence to what we do, whether that's our interactions with the people we date, our partners, our sexual experiences, is bringing more presence to those things as well. But enough of that. It's time to get into the episode and learn all about the brain and how you overcome procrastination, overthinking, and move into a place of just having a happier and healthier life. Welcome, people. Back to another wonderful episode. And something a little bit different. I feel like the episodes recently have lots of something a little bit different. But I see more and more with the men I work with that thinking and how their brains work is really something that holds us back, really stops us from getting where we want to. Because ultimately our thoughts, I'm a great believer, is a lot of our thoughts create our reality. And often we relate to our thoughts as if they are the truth, the only truth, the fixed and real, which causes us a lot of unhappiness in our lives, actually. And as a coach, I see this play out, and I do a lot of work interrogating people's thoughts. So I thought I'd get an expert in to talk about the mind, how the mind works, how it affects the way we think, overthink, even things like, self-worth and self-belief. So today I have with me Jenna Holloway, who is a solutions-focused hypnotherapist. Hello, Jenna.
Hi, good morning. I couldn't help but nod all the way through that, David. Everything you were saying, I'm like, yep.
Yeah. The way we think, it's remarkable sometimes, because I imagine you see this probably even more than me. Sometimes I'm listening to people talk, and they say one thing, and then they say something that completely contradicts that thing. And when you point those two things out to them, they kind of look at you as if, well, yeah, like I did say those two things, and I think those two things, and sometimes they can't even see that there's a very obvious contradiction that they're believing in, that's
Mm.
holding them back in their lives. And I guess I just see a lot of my work is to go, do you see this contradiction? Yes. What would you like to be thinking? How would you like to be acting? And
Yeah,
start to get into that a bit more.
definitely. We're only ever inside our own head, so we don't realize how different it could be or how harsh we're being with ourselves at times, or all the problems that people I see and that I'm sure you see as well struggle with. It doesn't have to be that way, but people don't realize unless they kind of do some kind of journey of learning about what's actually going on, or self-development, that kind of thing.
We come from, we've had parents, like I look at my own parents, and they wouldn't even dream of kind of looking at their thinking and questioning
Mm,
how they think. And it's even hearing them. I remember growing up sometimes, the common phrase you hear people is like, how could they do that thing? you know and I remember as a kid, you kind of almost start to learn this phrase. It's like, how could someone do that? And it always comes from this idea that everyone should be thinking in the same way we're thinking. If they're not
yeah,
thinking like us, then what they must be crazy.
yeah,
And often, I found that people didn't really stop and think, oh yeah, that other person has had a unique experience of life and upbringing and everything, so their thinking could be very different,
mm,
hence why they might do different things. And it's,
yeah,
that simple thing of being, oh, someone else thinks differently, could really
yeah.
change our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Like perception is everything. And we always choose how we perceive something. And you can have two people in the same room experience exactly the same situation and come out of it and, have a completely different idea of what happened, because that you always experience life through the lens of what you've experienced previously. And you've recorded and stored everything in the subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind, because its job is to keep you alive, it's always relating the things that you're experiencing in the now, relating it to what have you experienced before? What does this remind me of? How do we behave in this way? And these subconscious beliefs and these subconscious understandings of the world and about yourself as well, they are they are made when we're a child. And obviously, as a child, we don't have that mental maturity to get the grasp of context, or the like have a proper mature understanding of any situation. And so this is where people can really come unstuck and basically have huge limiting beliefs, or any kind of issue can stem from simply as little as a throwaway comment that they would have heard as a child, but because they didn't have the maturity of an older brain, they've made it mean something about them personally, and then that can shape everything that you experience as an adult, because you hold this belief, most probably a subconscious belief, but not always, hold this belief about yourself or about your place in the world, and then that affects how you feel, and how you feel will affect how you act or how you don't act. And yeah, it's just so powerful to learn this kind of stuff about the brain, because then you can start this improvement in self-awareness, and really shape your thinking. And it, like you said, it's so exciting now. People are actually questioning this and learning. We have access to things like the internet and podcasts, which our parents didn't. So, give them grace. They didn't have the access to the whole world of learning that we do now.
And I see this issue of pulling from the past and seeking. It's almost like what we do is we go, someone's talking to us, and we kind of just go, A, what does this mean about me? They're saying. And kind of two is like, what does this mean? What does this mean in relation to what I know of myself from the past? And I see this a lot in, particularly the work I do with men in relationships and dating, is that they're never taking this present moment as a fresh new moment and seeing what's
Absolutely.
there in that moment. And only really, it's almost like we actually get stuck in these loops of basically living from the past, living from when we were anything from 3 years old. If we're storing these emotional memories that we have no actual memory of,
Yeah. Yeah.
to things that happen to us as 5, 6, 10, 12, 15 years old, and we're just
Mm.
replaying these memories in the present moment as
Yeah.
reactions, as pure
Yeah.
reactions in this
Yeah.
moment, and never actually realizing that we we aren't actually responding to this moment because we think in our minds that this is a thing that's happening through our perception, as you said earlier.
Yeah. It's so fascinating.
Very.
And the reason for this is your brain is trying to keep you safe, and our brain is built for survival only. Yeah, we don't, like phones and computers and everything, we have like a software update every 6 weeks, but that's not the case with our brain. We're literally living with a caveman brain. And it's built for caveman times, for staying alive. That's its only purpose. And so our brain does really annoying things for us now, but everything it does is for the purpose of staying alive. So things like the way we act being subconscious, so exactly what you just said, that is there in order for us to stay alive. And the reason, like, let me explain that. So if your subconscious mind is taking in the world so much all of the time, non-stop, it's subconsciously scanning the situation, the room, everything, for signals of danger.
Mm,
um, and you won't consciously notice something, but subconsciously you'll notice something, and it will make you feel a certain way and react a certain way. And it's always comparing, like you say, it's always comparing to what you've experienced before. Now, if that wasn't the case, then consciously you'd be taking in everything around you, and you wouldn't be able to spot the danger. And so that's why everything that our brain does is to keep us alive. But nowadays it's not helpful, because what happens in the brain is it's looking out for these signals of danger, which are down to perception. If we perceive that a situation could be dangerous, our brain can't tell the difference between real and imagination. So we basically put ourselves into fight or flight or survival mode. Our brain releases all of this adrenaline. We end up feeling exhausted. We end up not being able to think straight, reacting in a way that we don't want to react. And it's all down to the brain just trying to keep you alive, because it has to filter out most of the things that are around you. So you only consciously notice something that's going to be a tiny proportion of the thing that your brain, the things that your brain is actually noticing, because you're always scanning the room on a subconscious level. But it's to keep you safe, so that you could spot the tiger that's about to come around the corner. In the caveman context, if we take anything that our brain does in the modern day world and look at it through the lens of, you've got a caveman brain built for a caveman time, then it's understandable. Things like procrastination, things like self-doubt, things like low confidence, things like perfection, being a perfectionist, anything. If you look at it through the lens of, I've actually got a caveman brain, then it makes sense. Anxiety is a huge one.
mm. And I guess before we carry on, I'd like to, and the listeners are probably wondering this, is how did you, what was your journey to know all this, to learn all this information, to, to study in the brain and how the caveman brain affects our lives?
Everyone always asks me this. I think it's very much of an interesting story, but I'm my career that I went into straight out from university was teaching. So I spent over a decade teaching French and Spanish at secondary and A level, and then went on quite a long sort of heartbreaking journey of infertility. Took me years to get twin girls. We got twin girls in the end, and went back to work after maternity leave and just knew that it wasn't right for me, because I'd always put my heart and soul into teaching and just, putting so much effort into my lessons because I absolutely loved my job. But then along came my family that I wanted so much, and I felt a bit torn. I didn't want to put in the same amount of effort because I wanted to be at home with my girls. But at the same time, I wasn't happy with lowering my standards in the classroom. And so I had this bit of I had to basically assess, like, am I going to be okay with this? And I wasn't. And so I followed my heart, and which I always do, and wanted to help on a deeper level, because obviously teaching, you're helping, but I wanted to have a deeper impact on people. And so I just got in touch with an ex-teacher that I used to work with, and she had trained in hypnotherapy, and I was actually teaching the course herself. And I knew it was right. Like I said, I always follow my heart, and I just felt that this was totally the right thing for me, and I haven't looked back. It's just my absolute passion to help people on a deeper level, and I still am teaching. A big part of what I do is sharing my knowledge about the brain, and via doing things like this, and actually just, yeah, it's so important for people to learn what I'm teaching, about the brain, because if we don't, then we just don't understand why we can get so stuck. We just don't understand what's going on. Like I said right at the beginning, we don't know what it's like to live in another person's brain, so we can be stuck, doing all sorts of things that are really not good for us, and releasing so much adrenaline and stress hormones in our body. If we're stuck perpetually in fight or flight mode, survival mode, like the caveman actually thinks there's a threat, but there's not. The problem is that you perceiving that there's threats all around, and the brain can't tell the difference between real or imagination. Then you're doing so much harm, because your body is not built to be in constant fight or flight mode, and not built for so much stress. And this is where a lot, huge amount of the physical illnesses that people suffer with now, when you actually look at the root cause of it, it's stress. And so, yeah, we all know how to lead a physically healthy life, but we need so much to learn how the brain works, because how you think and how your mental state, I believe that your mental well-being and how you think affects everything completely. Quality of life, physical health, happiness, the things that you end up doing in your life is all down to what's going on in the brain. So yeah, I just feel like it's my calling, it's my mission. Like, I feel like I'm doing what I absolutely am here to do, and that is to share my knowledge about the brain. So yeah, still a teacher, but in a different way.
Yeah. As a friend of mine once said to me, he listened to a particular podcast episode, I can't remember now, and he was just like, he sent me a message joking. He was like, "You see, you're doing God's work. You're doing the work to make a difference in people's lives. The work that
Yeah,
God has put many of us here to do, to make the world a better place, to help people with their struggles and what they're going through. Because ultimately, like you said, it's amazing that we know that stress causes so many problems in our lives. Like, all, so many illnesses are traced back to stress. And yet we have built a world and built lives where we are constantly in stress about one thing or
yeah,
another, which is,
yeah,
and it's, and yet we just kind of tuck this thing under the carpet constantly. It's like as if it's equivalent of if we were sitting and eating McDonald's every day, 3 times a day, and just pretending that, it didn't have any effect on our health and our heart,
mm,
and so forth.
yeah. And so much of it is normalized. Like, we normalize the fact how stressed we are, and how, if you can never switch off, or if you have problems going to sleep, or you're waking up in the night, or for example, you're addicted to your phone, or you can't get through the day without having a drink, like, that's not normal. You know, what
Mm.
is normal is that we can switch off and that we are able. So many people, for example, aren't able to live in the present moment. Their brain is always thinking, overthinking constantly. That's not normal. That's a sign that you're in survival mode, because your brain is like trying to keep you alive by thinking worst case scenario, what if. And as I said earlier, your brain can't tell the difference between will and imagination. So if you're having worst case scenario thoughts, what your brain is doing is releasing all of that stress as if that was actually happening. And it's no wonder that you end up feeling absolutely exhausted. If you're waking up in after a whole night's sleep and you're not feeling refreshed, or you're not feeling positive, or you're not able to live in the moment, you're just worrying about something that might or might not happen later, that's a sign that you're in survival mode, and you're not, your brain is not where it needs to be, and it's purely because it's in fight or flight, and it's not okay. You're not supposed to be in fight or flight anywhere near as much as the average person is.
Because as you said, our caveman brain would have had to, we would have had to be, roaming through the savannas or through the jungles, and we'd have had to keep our wits about us, worrying about snakes and lions and
Yeah,
tigers and giant sloths or whatever animals there were. But we would also have had time where we're, sitting by a riverbank or sitting with our family, our tribe, our people,
yeah,
just singing and relaxing through the evening. And I guess those times now, I can, even for myself, I'm guilty of this, is like my evenings are finishing off emails, are finishing up with my clients sometimes, and then a bit of food, maybe some time to sit down with my partner and talk. But I also know so many people who pretty much work up until, late in the evening, or as you said before, they're addicted to their phones. They're spending our whole evenings looking into this little blue screen, switching context continuously through videos and pictures and conversations and news, taking in all these things that are stressing us, are making us feel like we're not good enough, creating
yeah,
comparison in our brain and all these things constantly. And as you said as well, it's all become very normalized to be experiencing this constantly because it's accessible.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't get a break these days. Never.
Mm, mm. So I'm interested because overthinking is something that I find that occurs with a lot of the guys that I work with. It's like it's overthinking of scenarios, very much as you described. It's like I see it a lot in a context of dating. I see it in the context of sex and intimacy as well. Where it's like going into these situations and it's like thinking of every single scenario. What could happen? What can go wrong? How can I mitigate all these things going wrong? Why is it that we find ourselves in this state? Why? What kind of occurs in our mind that brings us and has us stay in this state?
So your brain, everybody has certain coping mechanisms, and your brain can only do what it's done before. So if it feels that overthinking is a good thing to do, because it keeps you alive and it's worked before, it doesn't matter. Your brain doesn't care about your happiness, right? It really couldn't care less how bad what it's doing is making you feel. If it's keeping you alive, then that's good. And
Mm,
so if overthinking is something that has got you through a situation before, then the brain is going to encourage you to do it again. Because not everybody overthinks, but a lot of people stuck in survival mode, that's do. A lot of my clients, overthinking is a very common theme. And so in terms, if we look, like I said, if we look at this through the lens of we've got a caveman brain, it seems like a good idea to think of all the worst case scenarios, because then you are prepared for any eventuality. But the thing is, your brain can't tell the difference between real and imagination. So let's say then that one of your clients has got a date on Friday and it's now Monday, and they're going to obsess and worry about that date and all the different things that could go wrong. And naturally, the brain is always going to go to the worst case scenario because its job is to keep you alive. So by the time Friday comes around, you've experienced all the different disasters in your mind. Let's say you've experienced 50 different dates in your mind, and every different one was awful and you wanted the ground to swallow you up and all the rest of it. But then Friday comes and actually, lo and behold, you have a great time. What's happened in the brain is you've experienced 51 dates. One of them was brilliant, and 50 were absolute disasters. And we've all got this metaphorical stress bucket in the brain. And every time you are thinking worst case scenario, your brain can't tell the difference between whether it's just inside your head or whether it's actually happening. So it's releasing all the stress hormones, and that's going in your stress bucket. And your stress bucket, because you're overthinking so much, is filling up. And the more full your stress bucket is, the less you're going to be able to live in the moment, feel calm, feel positive, feel like you are confident, feel like you can relax. It's in when your stress bucket is full, you can't help but be in survival mode, because it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to live with a full stress bucket. And so yeah, that's what's going on in the brain. um and so it's not good. A full stress bucket can lead to things like waking up in the night or poor sleep, and then we all know what it's like. If we had a really bad night's sleep, then you have even less energy the next morning. You're even more likely to think negatively. You're even more likely to be in survival mode. I don't think I've used the term yet, but I call survival mode, and when you're in fight or flight, I call that part of the brain the primitive brain, because it's what the caveman would be doing. And when you're not in the primitive brain, the opposite, the best part, I call the intellectual mind. So when you're in your intellectual mind, you can stay in the moment. You can feel confident, because confidence comes from within. You can believe in yourself. You can think clearly. And that's the thing. Like we've all experienced that mind blank moment, whether it's meeting somebody new or in an exam or whatever, where your brain just goes blank and you can't even remember your own name. That's a sign of being in survival mode, because you shut down. Like, there's so much going on that your brain just wants to survive. You lose your language, you lose the ability to think clearly. And so when you're in your intellectual mind, that's not the case. You can access all your mental resources, you can be confident, you can just be who you are and feel calm and carefree, and that's where we want to be living our lives. Can't remember what the original question was now, sorry.
Doesn't matter.
Overthinking.
Because, and I can really talk from experience in the last few weeks. Like I found myself a couple of weeks ago feeling really, really stressed, really like waking up and thinking about work, worrying. And it really becomes this cycle, because you become quite fixated on whatever thing you're worrying about, right? And you're thinking of all these eventualities. How can I mitigate this? Do I need to do this thing? And then you start suddenly you're checking things here and there, checking phone, you're checking emails, and you've become quite frantic in your mind, right? Because
Yeah.
it's as if you've given your brain a problem and said that this problem needs fixing, right?
Yeah.
And the brain's gone, got it, on it, I'm on it. But the problem is complex, and you get into this overthinking, and it keeps going round and round in circles, and then it doesn't know when to switch off, right? In the evening, in the morning, even your dreams. Even I found for myself, I don't know if anyone else listening to this has had that, where your dreams are about the problem that you're worrying about. It's like
I'll talk about that in a sec. Yeah.
You become absolutely consumed by these worries and concerns, and it takes over your life. You do, and the stress, you feel it in your body. You feel this, like,
Absolutely.
I call it this kind of like zing, when you're constantly like slightly you'll feel like your insides are almost slightly buzzing, and it's just like waiting on alert. And it very much are on alert. Like you might find your eyes darting around, and so
Yeah.
forth. And this is the state that so many people have come to find as just normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not good. But the thing about the brain, like, it is so fascinating and powerful and incredible when we know how it works. Because only so far we've talked about the fact that the brain can't tell the difference between real and imagination, and we've only used it in a negative context. But that in itself is incredible, because you can then visualize something going really well in all its detail, and you've actually lived that in your brain as a positive experience. And so when you get to do that, your brain recognizes it and is ready. So like sports performers, they will, like, let's say Andy Murray in Wimbledon final, he would have practiced that in his mind, that championship point a million times. And that's so powerful. They call them what do you call them? Sports.
Apologies.
Yeah. But actually, a part of it is hypnotherapy. They will be visualizing that, in a learning state over and over and over again, so that it's a lived experience in the mind. So it just comes naturally when you come to do it. And there's so much about the brain that is just so incredible in terms of the things that we can do if we let go of all limiting beliefs. But we only can access all of that if we understand how the mind works and get out of the primitive brain, get out of survival mode. Because you are in your intellectual mind and you are confident, you can do anything you put your mind to. Like that self-belief and that confidence comes from within. I'm completely willing to be honest with you here. I am seeing all my clients from my bedroom. I don't, we got twins, they're in separate bedrooms at the moment. And, once I'm happy that they're not going to wake each other up at 5:30 in the morning, then I'll put them in the same room and I'll have myself a lovely little office. But until then, it's okay. I'm happy. My clients are getting what they need. Doesn't make me any less of a therapist. The fact that I'm doing my Zoom, by the way, all my clients are on Zoom. It's just a virtual thing. So, but other people would have told themselves the story that you're not credible if you don't have a therapy cabin or whatever, even if you're doing it online. And so all of these stories that we tell ourselves are actually limiting beliefs, holding you back, because the brain wants to keep you safe. So doing anything outside of your comfort zone is obviously going to be something that your brain doesn't want you to do. And this is another really interesting thing that your brain does. If you come up with a good idea and you don't actually execute that idea straight away, even if it's the most amazing idea, what your brain is going to do is it's going to notice the hesitation and it's going to think, whoa, hang on a second, don't do that thing, because that thing represents change. Whether you're a business person, for example, and you've got an idea to launch a podcast or whatever, it's going to give you all the reasons not to do that because it's different than what you're doing now. And what you're doing now is safe and it's keeping you alive. So this is why your brain doesn't want you to get out of your comfort zone, because of the risk that it presents. Whereas intellectually, actually that that's a really good idea and that you should do that. And getting out of your comfort zone is a great thing because we grow in confidence every time we do it. But we need to know this in order to not be paralyzed by fear or self-doubt or procrastination. Procrastination is a coping mechanism of the brain. It wants you to not do the thing that would be good for you, but actually presents a little bit of a risk. And so that's why we procrastinate.
Because we have this risk is change, and change is more effort as well for the brain to work through, to go through.
Yeah.
And I see this, I see this so much in the areas I work in, is like, oh, but I don't want to do that thing, that change I want to make. No, I don't think it's a good idea. And you're like, why don't you think it's a good idea? And then you get this story of all the things that could go wrong. And I think half my job a lot of the time as a coach, and you probably see this a lot, is simply I go, tell me all the ways this could go wonderfully. You've got 15 minutes. Just tell them to me. They could be as fanciful as you like, right? I'm just asking you to just play. Let's play this game. Tell me how amazing this date could go. And I sit there and they play it through and they tell me all these things, and you see these smiles and these emotions that run through them. And sometimes at the end, I just say, how did that feel? And they're like, oh man, that felt amazing. This and this. I was like, do you realize that you do the opposite of that all the time? You never stop to look at a different point of view and have a different perspective. And that is simply necessary because of the way that our brain pays attention far more to what is negative, right? We have this negative bias that operates in our mind that is to keep us safe, is to,
absolutely. Keep you alive.
As someone once said to me, it's our risk manager. We have a risk manager that lives inside our mind that is assessing everything, that says, okay, what I know is safe, right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting even in that sentence is safe and what's good for you are not necessarily the same thing, as you've said. So we might do things that are not good for us, but because we know them, they make us feel safe. Whereas this thing that's maybe slightly outside of our comfort zone, it could be a new relationship, it could be going on a dating site, it could be going on a date, it could be falling in love, right? We have a tremendous fear over this because it simply sits outside of what our brain knows to be safe. And then when we are in this state of, overthinking, fear, worry, fight or flight, our nervous system doesn't have the kind of capacity to go, oh, wait, let me engage the brain in a way that the brain can actually look analytically at this thing and say, yeah, this is good for me, and I can take action in this way. And we just sit, we don't move in our lives, we get stuck, we take the same actions that are bad for us, we overthink, we get deeply anxious, and our lives start to, at that point, you often think of the comfort zone, it starts to contract. We start to get even smaller in the things that we're willing to take on and try.
Yeah, because if you think of doing something and then your brain tries to stop you, let's say going on a dating site, and you wanted to do it, but then you decide not to, what your brain, like the process your brain goes through is I told you that was a bad idea and you didn't do it. There you are, you're safe. So don't ever do that thing again. So that's that. But another thing I wanted to just go back on was what you said about, that time in the coaching session where you say, right, talk to me about all the things that could go right. And I bet you physically see a difference in them. They're smiling, they're really excited. That's what is happening in the brain all the time. Our thoughts are generating chemical reactions. And when we think good thoughts, we feel good. So some of your listeners might have heard of the fact that if you smile, even if it's a genuine smile or not, your brain is going to be releasing feel good hormones that will lift you up. And so, and you were absolutely right when you said that your brain is designed to be negative. It's going to think of all the, the negative bias, of course, because when you put it through the lens of the caveman brain, it has to keep you alive. So it has to spot the danger. It doesn't care about looking for the positives. And this is not our fault. It's how our brains are wired. But we have the capacity to rewire it. So we can actually, and this is what I get all my clients to do, is to start to keep a positivity journal at the end of every day. Write down 5 things that have been good about your day. And this is not a gratitude journal. There's a place for that, and that is great. But actually look for the things that have been good during the day, because then you're taking that moment to reflect on the day. And actually, a lot of the time after doing this exercise, you then sort of consciously reflect on the day and you think, oh, I actually had a really good day, rather than just going to bed and thinking, oh, I didn't get that done, and now I must remember to do that, and oh, I haven't finished my to-do list, all of that negative stuff. You stop that in its tracks. Your brain can only think of one thing at a time. And if you are doing something positive, like a positivity journal, then you are training your brain to be more positive. And this is incredibly powerful, because every negative thought goes in the stress bucket. So if you can shift the balance to much more positivity in your thoughts, then you're going to be lowering what's in your stress bucket and be able to stay in your intellectual mind so much more, and therefore be happier, calmer, more confident, all of the rest of it. Life is amazing when you're living from your intellectual mind. And obviously you need to know how the brain works to do that, but definitely a positive mindset is huge.
And it's also something for me is I see is like it's quite contagious to have this positivity, right? And I'm not going into the realms of what's kind of come to be seen as like toxic positivity. It's like,
No,
everything's great.
no.
There's a war in that country, but it's all going to be wonderful. But it is still to look at our day with a certain level of objectivity, actually, and
Mm.
go, what went well, even down to the smallest things. Like maybe you made some nice food, or someone smiled at you,
Yeah, the
or
smaller the better. Definitely.
the sun was shining, you can see your plant, these little things that are happening that we ignore constantly, right? We forget because they don't um conform to our already existing narrative of ourselves and our lives. Be that maybe you feel that you're a failure, or you never finish anything, or you don't do anything right. These little things, I mean, you say, is like they create a different narrative, a different pathway through the brain to say,
Mm.
actually, no. And all of these things you're saying, what I really hear is like it takes a level of consciousness, like being conscious and consciously taking actions towards where we want our minds to really be making decisions and choices from.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the smaller the better. When we were noticing positives, the smaller the better. Because if you're noticing the small things about your day that have been good, then that's a great sign, because you're building that habit. And life is not about the big moments. It's not about the week off that you can go on holiday. It's about enjoying every day and every moment that we possibly can, because the only moment that we have is now. And
Mm.
so if you're trying to like look forward to all the big things, and actually that's not good at all. We want to bring down our level of what brings us joy, so that we can experience joy in the moment, in the smallest of things, because that's going to be giving us the feel good chemicals to keep us in our intellectual mind. And I was going to say something else, but I've lost my train of thought now.
It's
I'll
even
hopefully.
the little things like a good conversation, hearing from a friend, the stuff that we I guess it's just things we take for granted a lot of the
Yeah,
times.
yeah. But actually, to be, like you say, to be conscious of how much good there is in our lives, and to be grateful. And to just focus on the positive is so much better, because then your perception changes. You have more resilience. You're stronger. Your self-worth raises. If you, and also, by the way, your brain, your subconscious mind, which is where all of your beliefs are and your emotions and things come from, is always listening to you every single moment of the day. It's listening to the things that you say and the things that you think. So just take a moment, like the listeners, assess what's coming out of your mouth, like how much of it is negative. Because if it's all negative, then your subconscious mind is listening to that and is going to make you feel a certain way, because how you're feeling on the inside is going to dictate what your experience is of the world. Because if you think that everything's negative and everything is doom and gloom, and everybody is selfish, or everybody's out to get me, there's no such thing as true love. If you think all of those things, then your subconscious mind is going to be listening and is not going to turn around and say, hang on a minute, that's probably a bit harsh. It's not. Like, the subconscious mind is absolutely incredible. But one thing it cannot do is to evaluate the things that you're telling it and think what's good and what's right. And no, it can't. It will just listen. And then it will look to find evidence of what you believe. So if you believe that there is true love out for you, and you will find it soon, and you believe, for example, that the better life gets, the better it gets, and all of these positive beliefs that you can choose, if you believe those things, or if you believe that you are worthy of love, for example, then your subconscious mind is going to look for that in the outside world. That's why they say that you can only find love when you when you start to love yourself, because it's just the way the subconscious mind works. It looks for evidence in the outside world of how you feel on the inside.
And I definitely, I can't resonate with that more, to be honest. Just because of so much of what I've seen is like, it's the red car thing. If I tell you there's a lot of red cars around, when you walk along the street, you're going to see all these red cars, because all our brain, a lot of what our brain does is just pattern matching.
Absolutely. It's the
I
reticular
know,
activating system.
I know a
It's,
pattern. Okay, let me
yeah,
find it. Where is it? It's
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
I see it everywhere. I can see evidence of it. I give an example. I said to a woman I talked to, I coached recently, and she said, "Oh, there's no good men in them. There's no good men." Right. This is a common. If you're listening to this, you've heard this tripe, I call it.
Yeah.
There's no good men, or there's no good women, whatever version there is. Right. And then what we then do is we've created this pattern, this belief, this
Yes.
decision, and our subconscious then goes, okay, cool. You've told me what's true. Let's go to work. Let's find it.
Yeah,
I can find it
exactly.
everywhere. Every newspaper you pick up, every time you scroll through Instagram, every time you go on Twitter, everywhere you go, you will see this evidence of no good men, no good women, and people being cheated on, being treated badly, and all these things. And then all you then do is you have confirmed your bias. You have
Yeah.
basically found all the evidence to say, I'm fucking right. Look
Yeah.
at the world. It's terrible.
And social
Until
media
someone
makes it
interrupts
worse
you. Yes, because
because
it's
of the
easy to find.
algorithm. It gives you more, and it gives you more of what you engage with. So if you engage in negativity, it's going to give you more of that. And so, yeah, we speed up this process that, would have been there before, but now it's constant, isn't it, with social media and the like as well. But that some of your listeners might follow like law of attraction and manifestation as well. And I did before. Like, that's basically what got me through a really, really tough fertility journey. Like, I was, in a really dark place, and I somehow, looking back, like now I understand what I understand through my hypnotherapy training. Looking back, I got myself out of survival mode. I started to be more positive. I started to believe, and all the rest of it. And I started to believe in law of attraction at the same time. That's what gave me the hope. And some amazing things happened that, looking back, it's like, whoa, it does seem like law of attraction actually works, down to the house that we're living in, the fact that we've got twins, and all the rest of it. But when I started my hypnotherapy training and I started to learn about the brain, I was like, wow, this is the science behind that. Because what you were talking about filter and like spotting the red car, when you have like a big goal, if you're into law of attraction or manifesting, you want to manifest like an ideal partner that is going to just be so right for you, whatever, then that goes on to your filter in your brain. Yeah, this thing that you were talking about is called the reticular activating system. So if you've got in your mind a picture of something that you want to happen, then that is relevant to you and your world. So there it is, going on the filter in the mind, and that filter filters out everything around you all of the time, positive and negative. And if you decided that you want to meet a certain person and you want to be in a relationship, that's on the filter. But one thing that you must do at the same time is believe that you are worthy and believe that you deserve that thing. Because if you don't, then it's not going to happen, because the subconscious mind looks for the evidence of what you believe on the inside. So you have to love yourself first if you want to find love, and you have to believe that you're worthy of that thing that you want. And then it's on the filter. So your subconscious mind, which is absolutely incredible, will look out, will filter everything you experience in life, and it will see that thing that's relevant. So it will get you to consciously notice it, and therefore take the steps that you need to get there. But if you don't believe, it's not going to happen. And so it's amazing. Like now, I kind of believed in all this stuff before, then I learned how the brain works, and it's just incredible the things that you can make happen when you absolutely believe that you are worthy. So yeah.
And it's funny you say that, because I had this strange statistic that I haven't actually mentioned this before, but over the last kind of 6 to 8 months in my coaching practice, quite a few people come to me, and often they're like, I don't know, I don't really want a relationship, I don't know if I can find what I want, I don't know what I want in terms of love and relationship. And about 30% of those people, 40% of those people, after we've had anything from 3 to 5 sessions, have found a relationship, a happy relationship, where they have a lot of the things they want. And it's been, I haven't mentioned it because I've literally looked at it and gone like, wow, so many of these people, as soon as we start having conversations and we basically worked out for them that either what they actually want, right, in a person, in a relationship, or that they realize that they deserve love, right? They
Yeah.
are not necessarily entitled to love, but they deserve to be loved, not
Yeah.
because of the value they have or how much money they make or what they have, but intrinsically as a human being, we deserve to experience love. And when we can step into that and go, wait a minute, so I'm a human being, yes, so then I deserve love, yes, so I don't have to question whether I deserve love in a relationship. And the shift in how they move through the world and how they date and how they have relations, start relationships, really changes, because they simply come from a place of like, this thing is possible. It doesn't have to be guaranteed, right? But as soon as the thought, the idea into their mind that this thing is possible, whereas previously before that it hadn't been there, their minds open up. And I always call it like, we become open to receiving the relationship.
Yes.
We become
Yeah.
open to seeing someone who might have a little longer glance at us. And instead of before, we might have gone, why are they looking at me? Is my shirt weird?
Exactly. Yeah.
We might go, oh, they looked at me a bit longer. Oh, I find that person quite attractive. Okay, I'd
Yeah.
like to talk to them. Because our minds are just entertaining this idea that this thing that we never thought possible is now possible for us.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? And this is why the work that you do, and therapists and hypnotherapists, whatever, it's so powerful, because we are shifting beliefs, and the beliefs are formed as a child from a brain that's immature, and that's not. So a lot of us are living our lives, unless we know this kind of thing and we do the personal work. We're living our lives based on assumptions that are completely harmful to us and out of order, and basically holding us back. But the work that you do is so powerful, because you shift that belief, and then like you say, this possibility, the mind will do its job. If you take back the limiting beliefs, you get rid of them, assess the beliefs that you have from a child, change them, change your mind about yourself and who you are in the world, and then watch how life gets better.
And you mentioned your hypnotism and your training, and I'm interested is, how does hypnotism, because we've talked a lot about how we can consciously change our thoughts through actions. Well, we haven't talked about a lot, but it's been the subtext there.
Mm.
But how does hypnosis come in and aid us in our desire to change how we're thinking?
Yeah, definitely. So the beliefs that we have, they're subconscious. And so a lot of the time we're not even aware of the things that we're thinking or believing about ourselves unless we have access to like coaching, or we look into it online. We can obviously do a lot ourselves just by watching YouTube or following people on Instagram. But once you have to know what beliefs that you have, and those beliefs need to change. And there's a lot of things like affirmations that are banded around. Do your affirmations, you'll change your beliefs. But actually no, because if they're not aligned with how you feel on the inside, they're just going to bounce off. And this is the thing about trying to change your beliefs through just conscious talk. It doesn't necessarily happen, because it will be filtered out as irrelevant to you. That's why affirmations most of the time don't work unless you've got an affirmation that is only just different to how you're feeling, rather than a big bold statement. So what hypnotherapy does is it gets direct access to the subconscious mind. And when you're in a learning state, which is all hypnosis is, it's just in a learning state, your subconscious mind is active and very receptive and open to positive suggestions. So you can just change the way you feel, the way you perceive a situation, change your beliefs very quickly. Because when you're in that hypnotic state or that learning state, your conscious mind is occupied, drifting and dreaming, doing what it needs. And that's the part that needs to get out of the way. It's the subconscious mind where the changes need to happen, because that's where your beliefs are, the limiting beliefs are, the mindset blocks that are holding you back. And then, once you improve, I like to think of it like a declutter for the mind. Think of all the limiting beliefs as the junk that you've just got to get out of your house. Then you declutter the mind of all the stuff that's holding you back, and then your thoughts and your feelings will change. And when you feel better about yourself, or you feel differently, more positively, then the actions that you take are going to be different. And then you can sit back and watch and experience more joy in your life, or feeling more confident, or being more calm. But it all starts with the subconscious mind, because that's where a lot of the negativity is. If you're feeling like you're low in confidence or you don't have self-belief, it's a subconscious mind issue.
And it's kind of sitting in there, and it's because it's subconscious, we're not always aware of what's held in there. So hypnosis is it kind of bypasses, it puts the conscious mind to rest. Go and play over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Go and play over there, and let's talk to this part of the brain that's really running the show. Because I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
I did a podcast with someone not too long ago, and he was saying that like the subconscious mind makes up like 80% or 80% of our thinking. Maybe I got the number completely wrong.
More. Yeah.
More. And this is when you kind of think of that, it's like 80%, over 80% of your mind,
Yeah,
your brain,
95.
your thinking. Is it
Yeah.
95? Wow.
Yeah.
So 95% of your brain is below your level of realization of
Yeah.
there's a contact between the conscious and the unconscious, but it's just below the water level, right?
Yeah.
Where we can really have deliberate change, but like we're aware of.
Yeah.
And so hypnosis becomes a very powerful tool for change and transformation.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's not our fault if we have these limiting beliefs about ourselves. Like I said before, it's mostly down to the fact that something that you experienced as a child, that you meant that you believed something about yourself to mean, which is unfair, but it's not your fault. You were a child, you didn't have a full understanding of it. And there's so many different examples where we can, and also when you're in a hypnotic state, you can access all of the memories. We only think that we've got a few memories, conscious memories, but actually the subconscious mind has stored every single thing it's experienced, heard, witnessed. And so when you're in that subconscious state, you can go back to the memories that you don't realize that you have, look at them with an adult learning and an adult understanding, and change how we feel, because it's all down to perception. And if you look at a subconscious memory that you have from the perspective of, I'm an adult now, I've got a lot more learning and experience about the world, you can shift how you're feeling subconsciously about that. And then the learning has happened. When it's a positive change, the subconscious mind is going to not go back, is it? Because it feels better. And so suddenly you can feel, I don't have to feel self-conscious when I'm in a room with more than 3 people or whatever, because the shift has happened on a subconscious level. And yeah, it's so powerful.
Yeah, I can see the huge changes that are possible when we not just our conscious thinking, but also when we start to tap into this subconscious, this huge reservoir of information, of knowledge, of memories, as you put, because I was thinking to myself that I was like, yeah, I really struggle sometimes to remember parts of like childhood and all things like that. I remember someone once said to me, who knows whether this person was right. I was like, oh, that means that there's lots of things that you want to forget. You don't want to have to think about again. And I always don't. I wondered with the truth in this is whether it's just stuff that my brain doesn't need access to currently in any sort of conscious way because of the many things I fill my life with now. Um, but it's interesting that we can start to uncover some of those things and see how they're affecting our day-to-day lives and how we interact with people, and we create the lives that we want.
Yeah, so much of that is down to what we tell ourselves as well. Because somebody who tells themselves that they got a good memory, well, they're going to be able to access those memories, aren't they? Because the mind will do what it tells it, what you tell it. If you tell yourself you've got a bad memory, then you're not going to be able to retrieve those thoughts, those memories as easily. But we can always retrieve them because they're always there on a subconscious level. You just need to be, in a hypnotic state to access them. But yeah, that thing about what you tell yourself will happen. You tell yourself you're going to have a good day, you're going to have a good day. And our perception is everything, because for example, we wake up in the morning and we choose how we feel. And now if you've got a full-time job that you're not really enjoying, you're going to wake up on a Monday morning and think, ugh, I'm tired, I don't want to get out of bed. But then come Saturday, you're going to jump out of bed because it's the weekend and it's great. But actually, there is literally no difference in how you slept the night before. It's just what you're telling yourself, the story that you're telling yourself. So if you tell yourself that you're always tired or that you never have enough time, then that's, of course, how you're going to feel. So, we always have the choice in how we feel. And another example of that is nobody can make you feel a certain way. For example, if you say, oh, so and so makes me angry. No, they don't. You've chosen to feel angry. And actually, when we understand that, and often it takes a lot of practice, that no one can make you feel a certain way. And actually, happiness is a choice, that you can choose to be happy. It's just a life changer. It's an absolute game changer. And yeah, just amazing. Like I'm listening to the things that we're saying, and some of it can feel a little bit sort of disconcerting if you've got a very negative, fearful outlook about the brain. But actually, that's your choice of perception. If you choose to listen to, like, wow, this is fascinating, like all the positive things that the mind can do when you understand it, then yeah, it's inspiring, it's positive, it's amazing. And the brain truly is. We kind of get stuck a little bit because we don't understand it. But when we do understand it, it's a game changer.
Because ultimately, it's like we're just reacting to things. We're having an internal reaction to ourselves and the things we say, the things we hear, the world around us. And we're not aware that we're reacting. We think that that thing is causing this thing in me. It's like, no, there's somewhere there is a reaction which you can take control of and choose, which could actually drastically change your experience of life. I think it's always become a bit of a, not obsession of mine, but recently it's just come up a few times in coaching calls where we've just talked about, like, why did you do that thing? I don't know, I just did it. Okay. Why did you do that thing? I don't know, I just did it. And when you delve in, there's just this reactivity. It's just like, oh yeah, that thing happened, so I do that. It's just like a switch, like, oh, if that, then this.
Yeah.
Without really actually stopping, going, do I want to do that? Is that how I want to be, react? Like something happens in the outside world. We have an argument with our partner. For instance, we're in the argument with our partner, we feel criticized. And the feeling we have is a feeling maybe of anger or frustration. But in that moment, we can choose how we react to that feeling. We can choose to go, this person's making me angry, so I'm now going to project my anger back at them in some way. Or we can choose to step back from the emotion and go, oh, I'm feeling angry. Why am I feeling angry? They've said something and it feels like it's attack. Actually, they're not attacking me. They're just expressing how they feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How would I respond in this moment if I was talking to someone from a place of, they're just expressing what they feel. I need to hear them because it's important that I understand my partner because I love them and I have compassion for them, and then respond from that place. And like that, what I've just explained there, though I said it very easily and very simply, is what I see more and more is potentially the most life-changing thing we can learn to do. It's like giving ourselves, space to think between the, stimulus and response, because it can really just change how we are reacting to everybody in our lives, from work to career to ourselves, to waking up in the morning and being like, oh, do I feel rested? Or, as you said, it's like waking up in the morning going, oh shit, I've got another bad day.
Mm.
We can choose to say, oh, actually, I'm going to make a different choice in this moment. I'm going to choose a different way.
Yeah.
So I guess the question I have is, so we said a lot of this, right? So we talked about, overthinking, procrastination, all these sorts of things. How does someone who feels that they're locked in overthinking or procrastination, how do they start to get out of this very tight cycle they might find themselves in? It's like automatically reacting constantly. How do they make the first few steps to get out of that and get into a better mindset, a better set of actions?
So first of all, it's about understanding. You've got to have an understanding of what's going on so that you have the self-awareness to recognize that you're in fight or flight. And when you're in fight or flight, everything's so much more negative. The ways that we respond when we're in fight or flight is only negative, whether that's anger, and that's the caveman's way of increasing strength very quickly to defend itself, or whether it's depression, caveman's response to hide away if there's a perception of danger, or anxiety. It's like, right, be on high alert all the time just in case there's danger. Those are all caveman responses. So when we know what's going on, we recognize that we're in that fight or flight state constantly and that we've got to get out of it. Then that's, you've got to recognize it to start with. Then what you need to do to get into your intellectual mind is to lower your stress bucket levels, to give yourself half a chance. And how you do that is that you need to feed your brain more feel-good chemicals, because the feel-good chemicals are what gave the caveman the resources and the strength to just keep going. Because if you actually think about caveman times, there was no painkillers, there was no access to heating or all the wonderful things that we've got nowadays. So it was the serotonin and the other feel good chemicals in the brain that made them really strong and resilient beings. And we've got the same brain now, so we need those feel good chemicals. And how we get them is through things like self-care. Self-care is not selfish. Our brain needs the feel-good chemicals that we get when we do things purely for enjoyment's sake. So don't work all day, every day. Give yourself a chance to enjoy life. Don't put everybody else first. All of the cliches like fill your own cup first before helping others. They're all so true, because when you are filling your own cup first through going for a run or, doing something that you actually enjoy, then you're going to be getting the feel good chemicals that you need to maintain your stress bucket levels, or at least start to bring them down. And if you think about your stress bucket, as a bucket, and you think of the stress as like a liquid going in, the more full that is, the more work you need to do to bring it down. So I always say to my clients, when pressure or work pressure or stress goes up, then your need for feel good chemicals, and I call them the 3 Ps, but your need for 3 Ps goes up too. Because if you think of the 3 Ps, which I'll explain in a second, think of those as every 3 P that you do, you're drilling a hole in the bucket, then you're giving your stress bucket more chance to lower its levels. Now, the 3 Ps that I talk about, rather than complicate things, because a lot of all my clients, they're in survival mode when they get to me, and you've got to basically help them understand, relate, and just get it and really connect to it straight away. So, and I've got this experience from teaching, I know how to help people understand things so they can just get on with it straight away and not feel intimidated by sciencey words. So I just call them the 3 Ps, and they are positive actions. So that is doing anything that you enjoy for enjoyment's sake, not because you think you should, or not because it's expected of you. Actually, no, what do you enjoy? Like, what are your hobbies? What lights you up? Do more of it. Second one is positive interactions. And you were saying this earlier about the caveman. They weren't always out hunting. They were singing. They were by the campfire enjoying. We are social beings. We need the feel-good chemicals that we get from being sociable. And this is why the elderly, they don't, studies show that they are less socially isolated if they have a pet, a cat or a dog, because you get the feel-good chemicals from, interacting with our pets as well. And this is also why people struggled so much during COVID, because suddenly a big part of what helped us cope life, by being sociable, suddenly we weren't able to do that. So we limited the amount of feel good chemicals we were able to get. Add into that the uncertainty and all the stress from overwatching the news because you're hooked about what's going on. And you can imagine everybody's stress bucket levels were just so full. But anyway, back to 3P. So we've got positive actions, positive interactions, and the third P is a positive mindset. Because, like I said before, when you are shifting the balance to more positivity in your brain, then you're lowering what goes in your stress bucket, because every negative thought is going in your stress bucket. And so this is like, for example, doing your positivity journal, reframing. Like if you instantly react to a situation and think, oh, that's negative because X, Y, Z, stop. And then try and reframe it. Try and look for the positives in a situation. And actually, no situation is positive or negative. It just is. And it's your choice about what you choose to perceive about that situation. So what I really try and practice now is that there is no negative situation. It's either positive or it's an opportunity for growth or learning. What this negative thing's happened and it's making me feel this way. What can I do here? What is here for me to learn or to grow from? And then with the gift of hindsight, you can look back and think, yeah, that was an amazing thing to happen for me, even though it was really hard in the moment. Take my infertility journey, for example. I would not be the therapist I am today or the person I am today. Take away my career, just me as a person. I'm so much more positive, compassionate, empathetic. I've evolved so much as a person through those real hard years. And so actually trying to shift your perspective to the fact that there isn't a negative situation, it's just positive or an opportunity for growth or learning, then suddenly you empower yourself so much to improve things. So yeah, in summary, 3Ps, how you can get out of overthinking or survival mode is get more of the 3Ps, because the 3Ps are what give you your feel good chemicals, which help you cope better with day-to-day life. So being sociable, doing more of what you enjoy, and being aware of your thoughts, making them more positive, because your subconscious mind is always listening. So make the thoughts positive.
Like action, connection, and our thinking. Those are three things that we actually always have control over, right? We might not always be willing to admit that, but it's like we really do have control over, simply just getting a pen and pad right now and going, what do I enjoy doing?
Yeah.
What lights me up? And it's funny because it's a question I find myself asking people like, it's like, what do you enjoy? What brings you joy? What lights you up? What makes you smile? What makes you feel passionate? Like, however, you know, remove the judgment as well from that. Remove the judgment
Yeah,
of what you think other people are going to think about that.
exactly.
Maybe you like to paint little figurines, or maybe you like to dance in your bedroom, or whatever it is. But like, write it down and spend more time doing it. Like, bring that joy into your life. Bring that joy and happiness into your body, into your system, so that you don't forget what that feels like, and
Yeah.
you don't get so locked in that negativity. And connection is, having good interactions with people, to me, is as simple as when you go to the supermarket, when you go and get your coffee, say more than just like hi. Say, how are you? How's your day going? Like, what did you get up to last night? Like, those little things, those little questions, they turn what is a transaction, right, of like buying and purchasing something, into an opportunity for connection, in an
Yeah.
opportunity to get into someone's world, understand someone else's feelings, what they're experiencing, and creates a positive interaction. And
Yeah.
the mindset is like just spending the time to create a little bit of space to choose how you think, instead of allowing the world to put thoughts onto you, or for you to just be thinking from your existing, already listening thoughts and feelings about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So important. And this that little bit of connection, like you say, in a coffee shop when you're just buying your coffee, that can change the other person's day. So don't
Mm.
underestimate the power that you have, not you personally, but your listeners, everybody. Don't underestimate the power that you have to make a difference in somebody else's day, just by a smile or a comment. If you think something, if you think that you like somebody's jacket or whatever, say it. If you think something nice about somebody or a compliment, say it, because it can really change their day. There's too much negativity in the world. So if we can spread kindness and positivity just through small things like that, that has such a ripple effect. Even just down to letting somebody out at a junction where you wouldn't normally. If you, and actually this was a coping mechanism of mine, a positive strategy that I had when I was really struggling. Because, as a teacher before, teaching is a really hard career. It's very demanding, even when everything in your life is just fine and dandy. But throw in a life challenge like, family illness, or in my situation, infertility, then suffering miscarriages and injecting my body with excessive hormones all the time, to grow eggs, to, the treatment, all the rest of it. That's hard to deal with that whilst you're teaching. So when I started to turn a corner and be more positive, basically looking back, getting into my intellectual mind more, one of the things that I remember doing was to put a habit in place on my journey home from work. I decided once I got to the next town from my home, I would let people out. Every junction, I would let somebody out. And just that small act of kindness would lift my spirits. And that was just, a small habit that I had that I still carry to this day. It feels good to be kind and to do good things. And that ripple effect is incredibly powerful. And you won't necessarily know about it, but just know that when you're doing something, a small gesture of kindness like that, that it is good and that it does have a massive impact on people's day.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's like you said, spreading that kindness to other people who you will never know how they receive that kindness. You will never hear them say thank you, but you still do it anyway because it feels like a good thing to do. And I think that's such a important message that we can take away, that we can all do this. We can all do those little things. Like you said, the smile is I'm living at the moment in Portugal, and I haven't got a grasp of the language yet. But simply walking down the street and smiling at people, even saying good day, it's an exercise I used to often give men if they really struggled with social situations. I was like, I just want you to walk along the street, make eye contact, and say hello and smile. Just do that and see how that shifts how you feel about other human beings.
Yeah, definitely. It's incredible. Just a simple smile will release feel-good chemicals in your own body, as well as changing the world around you as well. And just remember, if you're walking past somebody, let's say, for example, you walk past somebody that you know in the street, and you think, because you're in your primitive brain and you're nervous about your place in the world or whatever, you think that they are avoiding you, or they don't like you, whatever story you choose to tell yourself. Actually, it's most likely more about them. They've either not seen you, or if they've looked you in the eye and not said hello, their brain could be somewhere else. You have no idea what's gone on in their day. And so most of the time it's about them. And actually, when you are in your intellectual mind and you're feeling happy and calm and positive and everything, you're able to access this level of compassion and understanding, because you're not in that threat state about, oh, everyone hates me, what are they thinking about me, don't they like me? No, it's not about that. It's like, actually lift yourself up a little bit. They're probably having a really hard day, or they just didn't see you, or they lack confidence to hold a conversation. They might be in survival mode, and actually it's all okay. Just lift yourself up and be in your intellectual mind, and life is not all about you. We have this thing, I don't know if you've heard about it, but this thing called the spotlight effect, where you think everybody is looking at you and judging you and laughing about the things that you've said, or everything. No, they're not. Everybody is always worried about how they are coming across. So actually, don't point out your flaws. Don't overanalyze things that you said or didn't say. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background. But yeah, don't overanalyze it, because everybody is always worrying about their own place in the world. They're not looking at you. They're not judging you. So just relax. Sorry about my dog.
It's all right. Everyone is too busy thinking about themselves to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Amazing. What a beautiful conversation. There's so many nuggets that people can take away and action in their lives and make a difference to their experience of their thinking.
I do have something else to pick up on, something that we mentioned earlier, and then the conversation just kept going. But is it right to go back to it?
Yeah.
So you were saying about getting up and just, the thing about, oh, I'm going to have a rubbish day. And the fact that you choose how you feel all the time, and you choose how you respond to situations. And you can either choose to just think life is happening to you, or you are living your own life. You can be a passenger in your life, or you can play an active role. And actually, it's so much better to live your life the way that you want it. So write a list of the things that you like to do, like you said, and just do more of it. Like, live your life the way you want to, not the way you think you should, whatever. But a big part of this is intention setting, and you can do this on a daily level. You get up in the morning, you can choose how you want your day to go. Okay, so you can tell yourself you're going to have a good day. And this is not just like whimsical advice. This is everything I say is backed by neuroscience, because obviously the work that I do. And this is powerful because when you're choosing to set an intention, your subconscious mind is listening, and it will look to seek evidence for what you want to happen. So if you say that, okay, I've got a lot to do at work today, but I'm going to be focused, productive, and I'm going to get X amount done. You know, obviously, if you're realistic with your expectations, you're going to choose to be productive and focused, and that's the intention that you set. Your subconscious mind is like, okay, right, let's do that, and it's going to make that happen. You know, and even better if you can visualize that. And also, when you wake up first thing in the morning, your subconscious mind is active. So if you want to, a really good thing that you can do is to visualize exactly how you want your day to go, exactly how, lots of detail, and always visualize the best case scenario, like amazing things happening. Your subconscious mind is active then. And so, yes, you're going to have much more of a positive, better day, because you have chosen to believe that that's going to happen. And your subconscious mind is going to look for evidence of that. But if you, well, obviously you need to know that to do it, but most people, not, I don't know actually most people, but a lot of people, they've got it hardwired now to, because we have the clock on the phone, we just look at the phone, and then through habit, we just go straight on social media. And when you're on social media, you are at the mercy of what your news feed is going to show you. And
Mm.
so, you know, you're not being intentional about how you're starting your morning. You could easily put yourself in fight or flight just by going on the news, or by seeing some judgy comment on Facebook or whatever. And then, like, you know, you're a passenger in your life because you haven't intentionally started your day the way you want to start it.
Mm. And it's one of the things I often say to people about the morning is like that first kind of hour and a half is really sacred. You know, it
Mm,
should be really sacred with how you choose to design that part of the day. Um, and I picked this up from a girl I used to date a few years back, and she refused to allow any phones into her bedroom. So you could not bring your phone back as an alarm or whatever. She'd just be like, nope, I'll set my alarm. And like even now, I haven't slept with my phone in my bedroom like for probably the last 2 to 3 years. So the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I have an alarm clock. So obviously I see the time there, and I often will just put some nice music on as I make tea or whatever. But I don't go straight onto social media. I I may even listen to something that's like positive, like uplifting, and interesting talk or something like that, because it's like getting my mind into the right state at the beginning of the day, and not just tuning into worry and fear. Like
yeah,
just trying to go, here you go, brain. You're just getting into the day. I'm going to shovel something towards you that is going to be good for you, positive, before before the world has had its chance to leap in on me and kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah,
put on me what it chooses.
yeah. Exactly. So much more powerful. You're putting yourself first and honoring yourself and how you want to start your day.
Yeah,
So much better. You're getting the feel good
yeah,
chemicals you need from the choice, from the things that you're choosing to do, rather than just, you know, doing things out of habit or because everybody else does.
yeah, yeah. Or just like compulsion to pick up your phone and see the
Yes.
comments on your Instagram, whatever. Like, and even as someone whose business runs a lot through Instagram, I don't go on there before I won't go on there before 10 o'clock in the morning. You know,
That's
I
really
don't go in.
healthy.
You know,
Yeah.
it's because I simply know that, like you said, I'm at the mercy of whatever decides to pop up
Yeah.
um, in your feed. And then the last thing I'll add on that is something I say a lot to people is look at your Instagram feed or your Facebook feed or whatever, and curate your feed
Curate it.
so that
Absolutely.
when you are there, it doesn't just make you feel shit about yourself.
Yes.
Like if you're going to social media and you feel shit and there's nothing that's uplifting you, making you feel positive, making you happy about your life,
That's awful.
you can just stop following those people. You can
Yeah.
stop seeing that stuff. Like, even if it's news, even in this time where we're dealing with war and so forth, it's like, you don't have to pay attention to it. You don't have to consume it. You can
Yeah.
just go, I can read that later, or I'm not going to read it at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your social media is designed for you, so curate it exactly as you're saying. Only choose things that are positive and inspiring and uplifting. And if you find yourself comparing yourself to something, then hit the unfollow button. You don't need comparison in your life.
Definitely. Wow, Jenna, thank you for such insight. Like I said before, so many tools that people can take away with. You literally, if you're listening, you could re-listen to this, sorry, and just take notes and start to create some habits and rituals that would really make a massive difference in your life and what's going on for you. But I'm sure the listeners are also wondering where they can hear more from you, where they can, work with you. I know you've also got a podcast you've recently started as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. I just want to say it's absolutely my pleasure. Like nothing I enjoy more than just an hour talking about people who are interested in the brain. And it's been a real joy. Thank you very much. Yes, I have just started a podcast myself, just because I enjoyed doing this on other people's podcasts. I was like, yes, I'm going to start one myself. And so it's very new, but if you'd like to follow it, then it's the How to Change Your Life podcast. Probably the easiest way to find it is via me on social media. So on Instagram, I'm at Believe and Achieve with Jenna. Links in the bio for the podcast. And also you can access a free sleep hypnosis audio whilst you're there, if you find yourself waking up in the night or struggling to get to sleep, then that will help you reach a deeper, higher quality level of sleep, and to help you just fall asleep really quickly and wake up feeling calm and refreshed. So yeah, you can access that via the link in the bio. Is that all you asked? I can't remember. But yeah, at Believe and Achieve with Jenna. Anything that there's Instagram lives and all sorts that you can learn from my page. But yeah, podcast is the way forward for me, because I'm sharing a lot of the things that we've talked about in more detail, and yeah, just via that. So yeah, it's great.
Awesome.
It's a passion of mine to share the knowledge, as I said. And you can't take the teacher out of me. I've left the classroom, but it's still there.
Could definitely see that.
But thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, and thank you, listeners. I'm sure if you've learned anything, you've taken away, you would have taken away a lot of useful tools. I'm sure me and Jenna would love to hear, once you've actioned one or two of them, how they made you feel, how they changed your life, how they changed your thinking or your reaction to your procrastination. Because ultimately, you've taken some insights away, and just sharing them again, it kind of reinforces this positivity, reinforces this ability that you have to create change from just hearing something on a podcast. So please, get in contact with us and let us know what's shifted for you.
I'd love that. Thanks.
All the details will be in the show notes, like how to find Jenna's podcast and so forth, and Instagram. So feel free to click through onto those. So I want to say a big thank you, Jenna. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing so much of your wisdom with everybody.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. And until next week, people, ciao, ciao.